Wow, you're funny.
I guess I'm the funniest one on this bench.
But just don't go too far with it. Like this.
More like the dumbest bitch on this bench.
Or like this.
I guess I'm the funniest one on this bench.
Guess I'm the creepiest.
Yikes. Just play it cool and don't come on too strong.
I don't know. My dinosaur joke was pretty good.
I guess it could use a couple more dinosaurs in here.
If the conversation is flowing and it feels like she likes you, try asking for her phone number.
You know, maybe I could,
Remember, the worst she can say is no.
I could, get your number get the number to your phone. It's your phone number?
Oh, I have the number already written down in my pocket. Here you go.
Thanks. I'll call you later.
I'd like that.
Make sure you wait until the evening to call her and come up with some date options before you ask her out.
Police are still actively searching for a man involved in a disturbing incident at Buena Vista Park earlier today, frightening one young woman in particular.
I had to give him my number. He was going to probably start masturbating or worse.
Ollie?
I just hope.
Wow.
What? What was that? Hold on 1 second. This lighting. Let me just fix this lighting real quick. This lighting not good. This lighting not good. Give me 1 second. Much better. Right? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I am your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. I hope you all had a phenomenal weekend. Hopefully it was an even better weekend than mine, which was, I guess, is still going on and is not going well. Hanukkah did not end with the bang we were all hoping it would end for. I mean, I had family. That's amazing. That's really awesome. And that outweighs everything at the end of the day. Football's not going well. We really need a big game from Christian McCaffrey. Anyhow, that wasn't the primary issue. The primary issue is you may be able to tell here that, like, yeah, my whole cornea thing, it came back. It came back with a vengeance. This was the last 48 hours was pretty brutal on the cornea. Pretty brutal. I ended up seeing 2 different specialists trying to figure out what to do with this whole eye situation, which was bad. Thank God it's actually, believe it or not, when you look at my eye, it's hard to tell. And I don't want to hear all the comments about freaking pink eye. It's not pink eye, okay? It's not pink eye. It's not pink eye. Last time, 6 weeks ago or so, I had a similar issue with my cornea, and everyone was like, ew, Joe's got pink. No, it's not pink eye, okay? I actually know it's a weakened cornea. That's what it really ultimately is. If you want, I can go through the science, but I'd probably, if someone pays me enough, I'll go through the science as to what the situation is with my eye, because, ooh, that was painful. I'm not someone who, like, is like, I'm not someone... When I'm in pain, I'm not someone who screams. I'm just gripping things like really tightly, as I'm sort of like, it's like my body's like battening down the hatches. I'll just be like, and I was doing that to Lady Logic's arm a couple of nights ago because it felt like, whoo, that was bad. That was really, really bad. Anyhow, out in the world, with like real people and stuff like that, a lot of stuff has been going on over the course of this weekend. Obviously, we knew that we were going to have the Epstein files dropping, and there's been mixed mixed reaction. Okay, let's not call it mixed reaction. A lot of people are gravely disturbed with some of the lack of disclosures that seem to come out from that whole thing. It didn't seem like it was really a good faith effort to get out everything that they were legally obligated under, the law, like the statute that was put out there, that the DOJ kind of held back some of that. We're gonna talk about definitely Epstein files, what did come out of it, and also the repercussions, the manifestations as to like what the deal is with that. I have a bunch of stories also that I didn't listen to the title description, tiny little stories, things going on around the world, some of which were shocking and horrifying. One story is going to just basically just make you go, guaranteed to make you go, I got one story like that that's like in the chute that's ready to come, that's just going to make you go. So who doesn't love that feeling? Who doesn't love that? Everyone loves that, right? And obviously we also have AmFest. That was this weekend. Turning Point USA had their AmFest with a whole bunch of folks coming out. I got some clips from there. I don't think I'm going to play the full Ben Shapiro thing. It's just too long. But he did pretty well. I thought he did a pretty good job. Very, very aggressive against some of his fellow right-wing social media influencers. Very aggressive, even taking shots at Megyn Kelly. And I have a lot of thoughts about that, because there's been a very vocal reaction, much positive and much negative, around this AmFest, which you knew it was going to be scrutinized because it's the first one since Charlie Kirk was assassinated. So how it was going to be conducted in his absence and the steps that they took there, you knew that this was going to be something that was going to draw a lot of attention. And some of the speakers who came out there did a phenomenal job. Many of whom did a phenomenal job. But the reaction has been very mixed. And it's almost like we're seeing the polarization of people taking different sides in the right. And then obviously Nikki Minaj came out on stage, and that too was polarizing. So some people thinking that's a great thing. Some people thinking that's a terrible thing. It's not something that AmFest should have, that, Nikki Minaj would never, that she shouldn't have been there. That it was wrong for her to be there. So I definitely want to cover that. Georgia fraud has been exposed. You probably have heard about that. We're going to break down that story really quickly for those of you who haven't heard it. And like I said, I have like a bunch of different, mostly crime stories, which are just no. It shouldn't be that. Anyhow, it's not pink eye. It's not pink eye. Anyway, we got a new member. I guess he upgraded. I'm trying to figure this out because I got back-to-back here from Nathan. I'm assuming this is an upgrade from like one level membership to another level membership. Like he must be a disciple now, because he's also been a member for 37 months. So I assume this is what happens when you upgrade to like basically, from follower to disciple, maybe even a leader. Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, welcome, my brother. And yeah, please make sure while you're here, you can hit the like and subscribe buttons. That would be very cool of you. Be mighty white of you. Doesn't even matter what race you are. It would be mighty white. I once had a whole conversation on this show about whether the phrase mighty white is a racist phrase. Like it sounds like something that only a real racist person would say. Speaking of racism, one crime that I do want to bring out for you is this story here that I just want to cover really quickly before I get into the other main stories, as people are still settling in here in the first early moments of the show. Yeah, so this is Junior Andre Matthews out in Houston, who decided to kill a classmate of his over a $20 vape. The details of this black and white Houston area school murder story: 18-year-old Junior Andre Matthews put 16-year-old Andrew Meismer in a headlock and stabbed him repeatedly in the neck with scissors. Why? Because he thought Andrew took his $20 vape. It's like, oh no, it was in my bag. Well, anyway, no coverage from national media, which means it does deserve coverage from us.
Shortly after, he was moved to the Harris County Criminal Courthouse.
You are charged with murder, which is a first-degree felony.
Wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffed for the first time, Matthews stood before a judge, charged with murder in the death of 16-year-old Andrew Meismer, a Sterling High School sophomore. Prosecutors laid out what they allege happened inside the school Wednesday morning.
She stated that she overheard this defendant and the complainant discussing a vape THC pen, that the defendant had lost his pen and was blaming the complainant for taking it.
That's what prosecutors say a female classmate who witnessed the confrontation told officers. According to investigators, police were called out to the high school around 11:15 a.m. Meismer died from his injuries, a puncture wound to the neck less than an hour later. Prosecutors say surveillance video from school shows Matthews and Meismer together earlier that morning, later entering an empty lab classroom. Late today, the Goose Creek CISD police chief shared in a statement they believe the suspect and victim, quote, knew each other well. In court, we learned where authorities believe Matthews got the scissors used to kill Meismer.
Defendant followed the complainant to the bathroom, searched his pockets, did not find the pen, but instead found a pair of scissors on the complainant's person. He took the scissors and put them in his own waistband.
Prosecutors say the confrontation then moved back into that empty classroom. That's where they allege Matthews pulled out the scissors he had taken from Meismer and stabbed him in the neck. A classmate ran out screaming for help and a teacher rushed in.
Shortly thereafter, witness Davis stated he heard cries for help and observed this defendant holding the complainant in a chokehold with the defendant's arm around his neck. Witness Davis attempted to remove the arm from the neck of the complainant, but this defendant would not remove his arm. He observed blood coming from his neck and the complainant's body.
Today, the judge found probable cause and set Matthews' bond at $3 million. Prosecutors say they plan to ask the
$3 million. See, that's a real bond. That's a real bond amount right there. $3 million.
The judge to revoke that bond under the new state 11D amendment. We spoke to Matthews' defense attorney afterward, who explained what that means.
What happened was judge basically, in an abundance of caution, since there's no case law on it, set a higher bond, because in a few weeks we're going to come back for that hearing, and depending on what happens there, either there will be no bond or the bond will stay the same or move up or down.
Yeah, that hearing is set for January 7. Back to you.
Imagine the idea of there being no bond on this lunatic. This guy who, look, obviously everyone is innocent, so proven guilty, but the reality of the situation, we have an eyewitness here to this guy stabbing someone in the neck with scissors multiple times over a $20 vape pen. One of these. Unbelievable. Whew. Yeah, horrifying. Horrifying. It's just, this is a society that's breaking down. That's not normal. That's not normal. It's actually called we refer to that as a deadly instrument as opposed to a deadly weapon. The rules, the laws tend to be exactly the same for a deadly instrument versus a deadly weapon. A deadly weapon is something that's, basically predisposed, like you look at it and it looks like something that could be used to be deadly as opposed to something that has another function. And I know that you'll say a gun or a knife has another function, but those are called deadly weapons, whereas a baseball bat or scissors considered deadly instrument. Just a little nomenclature. $20 toward my I almost, you want to hear something really weird? I almost got an eye patch on Friday before my eye was injured. I was just like, it's probably a good thing to have. I was in the store. I was by I was in Walgreens by like the eye care center because I was buying this, okay? Which is like these different eye drops that are basically it's the same as Muro because I've been using. I keep all this stuff like in easy reach all the time. This is what I have been using for like the last month, like 4 or 5 times a day. You'll see in a second when the camera picks it up. I have to move it. There you go. That's what I've been using. That's what I've been using for like the last 4 to 6 weeks, like 4 times a day. Every time I turn around, I'm just like sticking, like dropping in my eye. I'm looking left. I'm looking right. I'm looking every direction, trying to figure out how to get it into my eye because the cream, I can't get stuff into my eyes. My eyelids are very sensitive in general. Like if I feel any pressure in my face build up when you hurl, so there's pressure in your face, I get 2 black eyes from that. I have very, very sensitive eyelids. So the whole region here, it's just like, no, it's meant to be looked at, not. It's well, anyway. So I appreciate the eye patch, fund. Like it needs to be a good looking eye patch. I'm not getting one of these, it's got to be something that's going to enhance the overall look. I understand that the reason most of you come here is because it's not for the words coming out of my mouth. It's because I'm virtual eye candy. So I get it. So it's important that that whatever eye patch I'm wearing is going to be something that's going to enhance the overall visage that I'm presenting to the world. I get it. So it's not something to be taken lightly. I can't just get like one of those $1.59 eye patches. It's got to be something, some serious, it's got to be eye patch swag. That's what I'm looking for. Eye patch swag. That's something that's gonna be like, I'm gonna come out of here. You're thinking, I'm gonna say, "Ahoy, mateys!" No. It's got to be, it's got to be on point. It's got to be on point. Anyway, that was one story that I wanted to share with you all because I thought it was a very, very horrifying story. Speaking of horrifying, believe it or not, this individual has a job in Congress.
This dude is probably one of the most unintelligent billionaires I have ever met.
She's talking about Elon Musk. She's much, much smarter than Elon Musk. You can tell from the way she expresses herself.
Or seen, or witnessed. Which, you can probably even glean that from watching these people on TV.
I can glean that he's a lot smarter from you just from the way you worded the last 4 sentences in 15 seconds. That he's in another world from you.
Anyways, all of that is to say is that they don't do their homework. Clearly, like, they're putting 19-year-olds in at the Treasury. This dude is not smart. And
I'm sure any one of those 19-year-olds has an IQ that's probably double yours.
And the danger in the lack of intelligence and the lack of expertise that Elon has. I mean, this guy is one of the most morally vacant, but also just least knowledgeable about these systems.
Oh yeah, is that what it is? Is that the story here?
But the point is that what that
it's like she hasn't said a point yet, other than that she thinks he's stupid.
Means is that they're going to hit a button. Inevitably, they are going to hit a button, and things can go sideways.
So there you go. That individual. That's what's serving us in Congress. There you go. Before I get into the main news, I do want to give you some good news. And this is good news from a source that did not want to give this type of news. CNN coming out here talking to us about how our economy is doing under President Trump.
I mean, I was surprised. It was a better number than anyone was expecting. Look, inflation's been very high. Mm-hmm. It's stayed high. It has not been coming down. But, people were expecting it to be above 3%. It was well below 3%. I mean, I think the president will take this as good news. The investors will think that interest rates will get cut more. So, it was a positive news. There's no other way to spin it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, look at me dressing in black. Whenever there's good news for America under a Trump administration, they dress in black. They only bring out the parties. They only bring out the party hats and those little things when there's like, a death toll from COVID or something. But good news is not something CNN loves to share whenever we have a Trump administration in power. I think I want to start off. Let's start off tonight talking about Epstein. I think that's where we're going to go. I think that so the Epstein files were released, and a lot of people are disappointed, saying that the DOJ did a poor job in actually producing records that they were obligated by law to produce. There are certain limited exceptions from what needed to be produced, but we're supposed to get by law. There's a statute that Congress passed, signed by the president, which basically says they're going to release the entire Epstein file with certain exceptions. Those exceptions are not very broad, and they're also even supposed to be only temporary exceptions. Those exceptions include an ongoing investigation or personal information about victims of Epstein who who want to keep their information anonymous. So and it seems as if when Todd Blanche came out and said, hey, we need more time, here's our first drop and there's more coming, this got people really upset and started, some of the victims came out and complaining. We have certain senators and Thomas Massey, obviously, joining in. Anytime Democrats are out there complaining about Trump, Thomas Massey is going to be standing there at the forefront in his lift shoes yelling, this is wrong. And so that happened too. But we did get certain things from these files. Let's share what we actually did get, from the Epstein file before we get to the reactions from some folks who are not too happy with the DOJ for what they did. And frankly, their complaints, I'll tell you right now, their complaints pretty much justifiable. There's very, very limited information that's not supposed to be available. But we'll get into that in a moment. Let's start off with what we do have. There's this compilation of Bill Clinton with lots of pictures of him. Whenever you see a little black box here, that means there's a minor or someone who's suspected of being a minor or some victim of, in this case, Bill Clinton. Yes, former President Bill Clinton here in a hot tub with some chick. And there's more. Oh, look at this. Such slimy. You can see why it is that we didn't hear about this during the Obama administration. Oh, Mick Jagger. Oh, there you go. Nice. Mick Jagger and some girl whose face has to be blocked out. This is good. This is really good. And there, the two of them are in their little matching shirts for some sort of, probably when they were out in the Southeast Asia together, because that looks like, type of shirts you would get in Indonesia. I'm just guessing. And there's more of them with Mick Jagger and Epstein. Mick Jagger, Epstein, Bill Clinton. Oh, there's Michael Jackson. Obviously, everything here is above board. Obviously. And I will be, to be fair, blacking out the face makes it seem like much worse. Like, for all you know, it's like a 30-year-old woman, right? It could be a 30-year-old woman, but as soon as they black out the face, you're like, oh, that chick's totally 15, right? That's what you think. To be fair, we have no idea anything about, this individual standing next to her or any of the other blacked out faces, whether they're, 30 or 15. But it definitely makes it look much more nefarious when you put a black box over the face. No, I can't be the only one who thinks that. It's like, this just looks wrong. I don't know what we're getting here. Oh, there's Kevin Spacey. Well, obviously, everything Kevin Spacey is going to be associated with is going to be just pure and wholesome. And I know he was acquitted. I know. He was acquitted. I don't know who these other two gentlemen are. Kevin Spacey and Bill Clinton. I don't know who little teardrop over here is. I don't know these. I feel ignorant that I don't know who these people are. Do you guys know who these folks are? Or Kevin Spacey and Bill Clinton hanging out together? So there you go. That's some of the photos that came out from the court that came out this weekend. So probably wasn't a good weekend for Bill in the Clinton house. Hillary probably is not having a good weekend. There's also more creepy photos that came out with Jeffrey Epstein surrounded by youngins, because that's just the sicko that he was. Here is an article from People magazine, which is obviously trash, but still Every once in a while, People Magazine might bring us something that could be of service to us. Jeffrey Epstein's seen apparently cuddling young children in photos newly released by the Justice Department. Photos were part of a large batch released by DOJ on Friday, December 19th. The files are so difficult to go through that you need to have a team of people to just parse out. There's hundreds of thousands of files. No individual can actually go through all of this stuff. You sort of need like a team of people to sort of attack it. Some of them are pictures. Some of them are files of, reports about investigations into him. So going through this file it's hard work. It's hard work. But here's picture after picture of him with seemingly very young girls, like horrifyingly young girls. This is not his daughter. I mean, this, you could tell from the hand here, this looks like someone who's like under 10. They're horrible. Photos released by the Department of the DOJ show Jeffrey Epstein sitting next to and in some cases cuddling young girls. Photos were part of a wave of Epstein-related files released by the Justice Department since Friday, December 19th. In one frame photo, Epstein appears to be seen on an airplane, smiling as he holds hands with looks to be a young girl in his lap. Girl's face is redacted and she's not identified. Another photo shows Epstein wearing a bathrobe, cradling what again looks like a young girl while sitting with his eyes closed. This is sickening. This is sickening. Separate framed photo also apparently taken aboard an airplane. Epstein is seen sitting next to a young child. You can see the face here is blacked out. This is over here. You can some small, tiny little kid. I mean, that's younger than 10. This sick monster. Another photo previously reported by People, Epstein is seen shirtless on a couch. Also seeing that photo is the leg of a child. You have that picture here? There's a leg of a child. I mean, look at what this schmuck. This sick schmuck. Wave of photos and files related to the Epstein investigation were released after Trump signed the bipartisan Epstein Files Transparency Act, which was passed by Congress last month. But the Justice Department has not yet released all the materials as mandated by law. And what has been released includes heavily redacted documents. Some of the documents are so redacted you can't see anything. It's just 100 pages of just marked out blackness, which is pretty inexcusable considering how long they've been going through these files. How long have you had these files? I mean, it's ridiculous how impossible it is to actually, there's a law that actually requires you to, release all this stuff. And if you get enough people on it, you can get it done in 30 days. If you actually were taking it seriously. As the Guardian reports here, U.S. Justice Department releases heavily redacted cache of Jeffrey Epstein files, photos including in tranche of documents as Democrats accuse Trump officials of failing to comply with the law. The DOJ on Friday released a long-awaited and a huge tranche of documents detailing its investigations into the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, a major development in the lengthy saga that turned into one of the biggest political setbacks Trump has suffered since his re-election. While significant portions of the file are redacted, those that were viewable included images of Epstein socializing with an array of prominent figures, including Michael Jackson, Chris Tucker, Diana Ross, and the entrepreneur Richard Branson. Bill Clinton appears in several photos, including one in which he's in a swimming pool along with Epstein's convicted accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell. Images also show the former British royal Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Lord Andrew, Prince Andrew. Another, formerly Lord, no longer a Lord. Another cache of documents showed photos of evidence gathered, including drives and computers, but did not reveal details as to the contents. There's also a photo of what appeared to be a dog in a garbage bag placed inside a box. In a letter to Congress, Todd Blanche said the documents, which date back to 2006, when Epstein was investigated on child prostitution charges, were only the first set of what's planned for release. Well, when are we getting the rest? Quote, The volume of materials to be reviewed means that the department must publicly produce responsive documents on a rolling basis, the deputy AG wrote in the letter obtained by Fox News. See, the main reason I care about this is this just hurts everything about Trump's agenda. It makes the DOJ look complicit in trying to obfuscate the Epstein files, which makes Trump look bad. It makes Trump look bad. I've said over and over again, the DOJ is his DOJ. Their failure to release this, or the FBI's failure to release this, it just makes him look bad. And I don't like having to defend this stuff. I don't like having to defend incompetence. And this comes across as incompetent. You knew this date was coming. Everyone knew this date was coming. I don't care if you got to bring in an extra 50 people and have them start going through his stuff. But you do it. You spend a couple of weekends and you do it. You get it done. It's embarrassing. And it's a needless embarrassment. Why embarrass yourself needlessly? He also acknowledged an array of redactions, including the identifying details of more than 1,200 victims and their family members. Congressional Democrats accused Trump administration of failing to adhere to the letter of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which requires the Justice Department to release all unclassified records, documents, communications, and investigative materials in its position related to the financier's case by December 19th. Law also requires the Justice Department to publish any materials from the investigations that relate to Maxwell, who was found guilty in 2021 of aiding Epstein's sex trafficking of teen girls and sentenced to 20 years in prison. I want to know I guess they're going to say there's an ongoing investigation with respect to the stuff that Maxwell told Todd Blanche. That I think you could understand might be an ongoing investigation. If she gave him something new and juicy, that would probably launch a new investigation, right? Like, if all of a sudden she came out and she said something like, I don't know, if she said something like Chris Pratt was hanging out with Epstein, which I picked his name because I think he's too young to have actually been in that thing. That would start an investigation to Chris Pratt, right? So we wouldn't know anything about that. And I like Chris Pratt. I said that because I said that name because I happen to like him. and I'm like, I don't think he's going to possibly be in there. I also think he's too young to have hung out with Epstein. But my point being, if they come out with Dustin Pedroia, we need to investigate these people, right? So you don't want Dustin to go on the loose. Yeah, I picked that name on purpose. Certainly picked that name on purpose. I could have gone with Big Papi also. Technically, they're not in compliance, the Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna, leader of the push to get the legislation passed, which, sad to say, I hate when I agree with a Democrat on anything. The law calls for this documents for all documents that are unclassified to be released. They have not done that. The law also calls them to explain redactions. I haven't seen yet whether they've done that or not. My initial read is that they have a lot of redactions without explanation. Chuck Schumer, top Senate Democrat, echoed his concerns and said in a statement, "We will pursue every option to make sure the truth comes out." Thomas Massie, like I said, there's never an opportunity for Thomas Massie to there's no Trump killing party that Thomas Massie is too busy to attend. There's never been a Trump killing party, a let's kill Trump party that Thomas Massie has had a previous engagement keeping him from it. He'll be there, and he's at this one. Writing on social media, document release grossly fails to comply with both the spirit and letter of the law that Donald Trump signed just 30 days ago. Abigail Jackson, the White House Deputy Press Secretary, said documents released prove that Trump administration is the most transparent in history and said it has done more for victims than Democrats ever have by making the files public and cooperating with a separate congressional investigation. Yeah, okay, but that's why you don't want to half-ass it, right? if you're trying to stand behind the notion that you're all about transparency, you can't have your cake and eat it too. I love the idea of transparency. I want hella more transparency. I don't think I've ever used the phrase hella more before, but in this case, it seemed perfectly apropos. I want hella more transparency. Totally fine with that. Transparency in everything. I want videos in the classroom. I want videos in the courtroom. I want transparency up and down the wazoo. Not because I individually am going to go through any of this stuff. Very unlikely I'll go through much of it, but others will. There are folks out there who will. And if they find something, and there are folks on both sides of the political aisle who will. And invariably, they'll find stuff that we can then look at ourselves. So I want hella more transparency. And you want to stand up there and say, our administration is the most transparent administration in history. Yeah, probably. Probably in the last century, I would say. Yeah, really good chance. But you don't look transparent. You don't have to, you have to appear transparent. You have to just say, there it is. You know, just you know this song. You just said that's all you gotta do. Whoop, there it is. It's that simple. But you can't stand there on a soapbox saying, we're the most transparent. Don't look at this part. You can't see this part. We're the most transparent. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't wash. The reason why you got so much flack over the Epstein files is because of lack of transparency. If there's ever a place that you're going to be transparent, this is it. This is it right here. This is it. So don't get up there. I mean, I'm sure you're awesome, Abigail Jackson. I'm sure that this, White House Deputy Press Secretary, awesome. I'm sure she's an awesome woman here. You can't get up there and start telling me that you're bragging on how much more transparent you are than everyone else because everyone else sucked. And you came in here saying we're going to be the most transparent. If that's what your thing is, then you go out there and be transparent. It's really that simple. And don't start saying, well, we got more, whatever. No, you should. I mean, it's a mark of pride for you, which it should be. If it is indeed a mark of pride for you, then live up to the ideal that you're claiming you're living up to. Aggravating. Done more for victims than Democrats ever have. Yeah, that's true too. So what? Because right now there's a law and you're ignoring the law. So now folks like me have to come out here and defend you, saying, well, they really are more transparent than anyone else, but they failed in upholding the law that Trump himself signed. Making the files public, cooperating in a separate congressional investigation. Epstein's case has captivated public attention for years and been the subject of countless conspiracy theories, largely due to his connections to powerful and wealthy figures in the U.S. overseas, including Trump. While he has the authority as president to make documents public, Trump previously opposed doing so. Stop with this. He signed the law. He signed it into law. It was a Democrat hoax. It probably is a Democrat hoax. But you've had a year to get all this stuff together. I mean, come on. It's December. You've been in power for 11 months now. 11 months. And this was from day one, everyone knew this was a big deal. So it's not a good look. It's not a good look. That's not what we want. That wasn't what I wanted either. Then there was an issue with a photo of Trump that was supposedly in the file, then taken out, and then put it in there, which just makes him look guilty also. Let's check out this report real quick.
A new trove of files from the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein was released by the U.S. Justice Department on Friday. That's after months of wrangling and rebellion by some of President Donald Trump's staunchest supporters over his administration's reluctance to make public all files tied to the convicted sex offender. Reuters was in the process of reviewing the latest documents upon their release by the Justice Department, which bowed to pressure from lawmakers who forced the files' disclosure with the new law. Some files in the new release included photos of former President Bill Clinton and Rolling Stone singer Mick Jagger. In a note on the Justice Department website, it said all reasonable effort had been made to protect victims, but warned that some could be disclosed inadvertently. Trump had initially urged fellow Republicans in Congress to oppose the new law forcing the release of the files. He had warned that disclosing potentially sensitive records could set a dangerous precedent. However, many of his voters accused the Trump administration of covering up Epstein's ties to powerful people and hiding details surrounding his 2019 death in a Manhattan jail, which was ruled a suicide. On the campaign trail in 2024, Trump promised to declassify the Epstein files if elected, but he's been seeking to move on from the controversy so he can focus on issues like affordability ahead of the midterm elections next November. Trump and Epstein were once friends until a falling out before Epstein's conviction in 2008. The president has repeatedly denied knowing about Epstein's alleged sex trafficking. Trump's Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche told Fox News earlier on Friday that the DOJ would not release the entire cache of files related to Epstein. He said he expected hundreds of thousands more to be released in the coming weeks as the department reviewed them to protect victims' privacy.
Yeah, so whatever it is that you need a couple of weeks to do.
Nueva Jersey.
That's not what we need. Whatever it is that you need to, whatever it is you expect to get done in the next couple of weeks, why would you just not have gotten it done over the last couple of weeks? You hired that many more people and you just get it done. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. There's really no, it just looks, it's a bad look. And I know that, you know, I'm confident that ultimately these files will be released, but let's play out how this works politically. Let's play this out, how this works politically. The more he stalls, the more that they're hiding, or it looks like they're hiding, the more it is that people will assume that there's stuff you're erroneously holding back, that you're burning. It just is a terrible, terrible look. I see what you did there. I see what you did. Transparency, I don't see how. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a serious, serious problem because it just, the whole feel is ugly. It's a very ugly feel. And when you have that ugly feel, you just end up motivating folks like the Jeffrey Epstein, like the Chuck Schumers of the world, to come out and make complete, you know, and basically be complete and total idiots. And be aggressive. So now you're on the defensive. And why do you have to be on the defensive? You're on the defensive from this clown? This guy right here? Like, who needs that? Schumer to ask Senate to back legal action over partial Epstein files release. Top Democrats has introduced resolution after the Department of Justice misses deadline for all files linked to the sex offender. The Senate Democrats leader Chuck Schumer announced on Monday he will introduce a resolution directing the Senate to take legal action against the Justice Department over its incomplete release of files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Quote, I'm introducing a resolution directing the Senate to initiate legal action against DOJ for its blatant disregard of the law and its refusal to release the complete Epstein files, Schumer said in a statement on social media. The American people deserve full transparency, and Senate Democrats will use every tool at our disposal to ensure they get it. This administration cannot be allowed to hide the truth. Please, where the hell were you during the entire Biden administration? This administration hiding the truth. You're such a jackass. You're a transparent jackass. If passed, the resolution would authorize the Senate to file lawsuits seeking a court order forcing the Justice Department to release the complete set of documents. The move comes after the Trump administration's failure to meet a 19th of December deadline established by the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which Congress passed last month. And they would win that lawsuit in a heartbeat. It's a freaking law the president himself signed. They'd win in a heartbeat. This is like a 10-minute case. Instead, on Friday, the department published only a portion of files, providing more than 7,700 links to photos and court documents. Attorney General Pam Bondi described this as first phase though missing the deadline for a full release means administration officials are breaking the law. Speaking on NBC's Meet the Press on Sunday, the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche defended the limited release. Quote, the reason we are still reviewing documents, the reason why we're still reviewing documents, still continuing our process is simply to protect victims. I'm so tired of hiding behind this. He said, and the critics apparently don't want us to protect victims. That's crap. This is the least impressive statement I've ever heard from Todd Blanche. I like Todd Blanche as a general rule. This is crap. That's a BS. That's like saying that's like when the Democrats. That's such a cuck statement. Oh my gosh, Todd Blanche. What the hell is that? I hope they paid you a lot of money to make that statement. What a humiliating thing to say. What an utterly humiliating thing. This statement right here, in case you just walked in half a second ago, this statement here from Todd Blanche, this is just freaking humiliating. Apparently, and closing with apparently don't want us to protect victims. No. See, that's like saying the reason that Trump is yelling at a reporter is because it's a black woman. Hey, what a bogus way of attacking. This is humiliating. If I see something I don't like, I don't care who's saying it. I don't care who it is. If I see something that's BS, I'm going to tell you it's BS, and this is BS. Apparently don't want us to protect victims. No, I want you to get off your butt and actually get all this done timely. It's really simple. Get it done timely. I don't care if to hire a couple extra hands. Get it done timely. Come on. The partial file dump was further complicated over the weekend when the Justice Department temporarily removed an image containing a photograph of Donald Trump before restoring it on Sunday. A spokesperson for Bill Clinton, who was a notable feature in the Friday batch of Epstein photos and files, said the slow trickle of information, quote, makes one thing clear: someone or something is being protected. This is not a time Bill Clinton should be sticking his neck out to be complaining about anything. We need no such protection, Angel Arena said on Monday. Accordingly, we call on President Trump Director Attorney General Bondi to immediately release any information, any remaining materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of Bill Clinton. Arena said the Clinton team is calling for all records without limitations to be released, including grand jury transcripts, interview notes, photographs, and other findings by the U.S. Attorney. Quote, refusal to do so will confirm the widespread suspicion that the DOJ's actions are not about transparency, but about insinuation. The audacity. Even Bill Clinton getting audacious. Legal experts told The Guardian that Congress does possess mechanisms to enforce compliance, but significant obstacles exist. Niyama Rahmani, a former federal prosecutor, explained that while Congress could hold Bondi or Blanche in contempt, any such referral would go to the Justice Department itself, which was unlikely to prosecute its own officials. Rahmani suggested Congress were more likely to file lawsuits seeking a court order to compel document production. Eric Faddis, a Colorado trial lawyer and former prosecutor, noted that Congress could vote to hold officials in contempt, with the sergeant at arms potentially detaining them until they comply. How humiliating that would be. And that officials could face federal prosecution for obstruction of Congress or evidence tampering if the investigation found noncompliance. See, I don't foresee it happening, but I do think that they're going to end up getting a court order. I think a court order is highly likely to be coming. Ro Khanna is now called for impeachment proceedings against Bondi for failing to comply with the law. Do it! Do it! Remove her! Get rid of her for us. Do it. Have her impeached. Please. Impeach Pam Bondi. Don't threaten me with a good time and think I'm going to start crying about it. Impeach Pam Bondi. Another post on Monday, Massey said the survivors deserve justice. The DOJ release does not comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act and does not provide what the survivors are guaranteed under the new law. Hakeem Jeffries obviously weighs in with his inadequate, it falls short what the law requires, blah, blah, blah. It does. Look at this. It gives all the when you give the stupidest of people a genuine opportunity to basically dance on your incompetence. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you give your worst enemies an opportunity to dance on your incompetence when all it is just getting your homework done on time? Brian Ogden gifting. I like that. 1 Good Lawgic membership. Ogden gifting. Are we going to see who he gifted it to? Can I see it? Can I still see that? Still see that? Yes, Marlene. All right, way to go. Welcome to the phone, Marlene, 5456-143. Well done, Brian Ogden. Well done, Brian Ogden, indeed. I think this could be, I don't know what the hell this is. I don't know what the hell this is. It just doesn't, it reeks of incompetence. He should fire Blanche and Bondi, make a new AG, Andrew Bailey. I've been calling for Andrew Bailey. Sing my song. I've been screaming for Andrew Bailey to be the head and to be our Attorney General for ages. I understand it's a huge red herring. It's not the Epstein thing itself. We've talked about this, and I'm going to talk about it right now. It's not the Epstein thing itself. I don't think there's anything that's going to be learned from the Epstein files. I don't think so. I don't think so. It's what the Epstein files symbolize. That's what it is. It symbolizes, are you actually going to be transparent or is it business as usual? That's what it is. I agree with you. I agree with you. I mean, is there going to be accountability or is there not going to be accountability? That's what that's what this story represents. But it's a representation more than anything else, at least as much as anything else. Pinochet's helicopter tour says, an awful lot of ex-Red Sox players for a Yankee fan. Yeah. I'm just speculating. If I had to guess certain names that were out there that are not yet known, who were part of the Epstein world, I'm just speculating. It wouldn't shock me if there was, Kurt Schilling, Pedro Martinez. I have no reason to know that they're there. It's purely opinion on my part. 100% opinion on my part. I'm just saying, like that would all start to make sense to me. That would all make sense. that would be, I would be like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. Kurt Schilling. I see it. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Richard Parker saying, Joe, it's a diversion, so you don't talk about Lara Logan's show today. Stop wasting our time with Democratic talking points like variety, like Vanity Fair and this garbage. It's not all Vanity Fair. I don't know what Lara Logan's program was about. What happened with Lara Logan? Let me see what Russia collusion oranges with Svetlana Lokova. Is that what you're talking about? I don't even know. I'm not even sure what you want me to be covering here. But Bonnie keeps the red herring in the spotlight. Yeah, like I said, is this ultimately like something that's going to change your life or mine? No. No, it's not. There's a lot of other issues. There's probably 100 other issues which will affect our lives more directly. But it's what the story represents. And to ignore the significance of this thing, it became a bigger deal than it should be because of the way it's been handled. I didn't make this a story. The Trump administration and our DOJ made it a story. Peanut just says, Joe, this is why you purge. You are pretending like the government staff Trump inherited were 99.9999% Democrat. Evil people are doing redactions. Trump administration is done giving it to them. Okay. So ultimately it's your responsibility. At a certain point, it's your responsibility. Was a bloody sock found on Epstein Island? Probably more than one. Probably. If I had to guess. I never been to that part of the world. I'm just saying, if you ask me what was like in those bags of evidence, I'd be surprised if there wasn't a bloody sock there. Did a bench coach get tossed like a germ? Oh my God. That's such a fake bloody sock. Such a stupid thing. People actually believe that was blood and not magic marker. Oh, the bloody sock, yeah. Lots of people who have sprains start bleeding profusely from a sprain. That makes a lot of sense. Lots of sense in that. You tell me one person you've ever seen who they get a pulled ligament that starts bleeding so much it bleeds through the sock. How does that happen? Utter scam. It was an utter scam. Joe, I understand you're slightly delirious because you have pink eye. Also, this is not a cult, but don't come for my Boston Red Sox, okay? If we're going to start going through whole conspiracy theories, someone has to explain to me how it is that a sprained ankle is just bleeding profusely. Like, how does that happen? Oh my God, the holy bloody sock. It was like the Shroud of Turin. His stupid sock. Did he pitch well? Yeah. Did he gut it out like a warrior? Yeah. The bloody sock, though. My God. Review Mike Ben's Epstein money video, 37 minutes. Not doing that now. Definitely not doing that now. But I will try to take a look at it. Lara Logan's kind of gone off the rails over the years. Not that I blame her, given how she discarded by institutions after what happened to her in Egypt. A lot of respect, though. Incredibly tough broad. Okay. I think I've shared with you all that I think I've already shared with you all what I know about Lara Logan. Okay, just so I get this, so no one's confused. No one's confused. When I was speculating about different people who may end up being in the fully revealed Epstein files, so I may have referenced one or two Boston Red Sox from the late 90s, early aughts as potentially being in the Epstein files, one of whom was Curt Schilling, who in a playoff game against the New York Yankees, which he pitched very well. I'm not going to deny he pitched well. When he had an injured ankle, which had like a sprain, and it was like his sock was turning redder and redder during the course of the game. So everyone's like, "Oh my God, his ankle is gushing blood, and he's going out there pitching like a warrior." And it was like, how is that even possible? So that's the reference to the bloody sock. In Boston Red Sox lore, the bloody sock is like I said, it's like the shroud. Indeed. Sorry for confusing those of you who are unfamiliar with that particular story. Happy holidays, everyone. Indeed. Happy holidays. Happy holidays indeed. All right. I think it's time I move on from this story, though. I think it's time we move on, and I can start talking to you all about. I'll cover the Georgia fraud really quickly, and then we can really dive in headlong into the AmFest and my thoughts about that, which I have a lot of thoughts about that. So, what's the fraud in Georgia that I told you all I was going to cover here? What's up with that? Oh, sorry. Pinochet says, let justice be done, though the heavens fall. It comes to that. Those that want the truth damn the consequences, and others that can't understand why someone would risk it, sending the world into chaos. I agree with the perspective that yes, we need consequences. Whoever it is that falls, and you know, if Kevin Euclid has to fall, he has to fall. You know, I'm just saying. This is a fiction. This is an outright lie. That's an outright lie. I can actually prove it if you want me to, but I'm not going to do it tonight. I already went too far with the whole Boston Red Sox thing, but I can prove that's a fiction. All right. Let's get to Georgia. Fulton County admits 315,000 votes were counted in 2020's election without legal certification in Georgia. In case you've forgotten the vote tally in Georgia in 2020, Biden won by fewer than 12,000 votes. We know 315,000 votes were counted illegally, which I just want to point out to you. Georgia of all states is one state that really confounded me, because I will never forget when you know how like when they're counting elections in a tight thing, so you sort of start counting down, like how many votes are left already that he could possibly lose. So the vote tallies as to how many remaining votes there are and how much of a vote lead Trump had sort of became very relevant, very something I was really fixating on. And I remember they were basically saying that, they have 200,000 votes left. They had like 100,000 votes left, and Trump's got like an 8,000 vote lead. I'm just making up these numbers, but you'll get the vibe, because the overall vibe is what I'm trying to share with you, not the actual quotations. And then they would come out with a report 12 hours later, and the vote tallies would have gone up by like 50, 60,000 votes. And they're like, well, we're down to there being 140,000 votes left. And Trump has a 6,000 vote lead. And then like a few hours would go by, and it's like, well, there's only 170,000 votes left. The vote tallies have gone up by like, I don't know, 90,000 votes. And all of a sudden there's like, it's like the ballots that were remaining were like giving birth to more ballots. It's like, where did these new ballots come from? You just counted, since you told us that there was initially told us there's 100,000 ballots left to be counted. Now we have 190,000. You added on another like 140,000 votes into the tally, and now there's only 200,000 left. It's like, where the hell are all these ballots coming from? Well, now we know. 315,000 votes were counted without legal certification in Georgia. Fulton County, Georgia officials have admitted that around 315,000 early votes were counted in 2020 election, despite lacking the proper certification. This is the state, in case you weren't really following the news very closely, this is the state that Trump was indicted for the way he challenged the election results in Georgia. Fani Willis coming after him. Turns out that her stupid election had 315,000 legal votes. Less than 12,000 votes separated former President Joe Biden, the winner of the swing state that year, from President Donald Trump. Georgia State Election Board hearing earlier in December regarding a challenge raised by local election integrity activist David Cross, per the Federalists. Cross filed the challenge in March of 2022, alleging that Fulton County had violated state election rules in the handling of early voting during the 2020 election season, with hundreds of thousands of votes being counted despite poll workers not signing off on vote tabulation tapes, which are critical to the certification process. Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections Ann Brumbaugh said during the hearing that while she has, quote, not seen the tapes, The county, quote, does not dispute that the tapes were not signed. She added, it was a violation of the rule. Since 2020, again, we have new leadership and a new building and a new board and new standard operating procedures. And since then, the training has been enhanced, but we don't dispute the allegation from the 2020 election. So they're admitting that there was complete crap going on in 2020. Under Georgia's election rules, election officials are required to have each ballot scanner print 3 closing tapes at the end of each voting day, which poll workers must sign or include a documented reason for refusal. Poll workers are also required to start each voting day by printing and signing a 0 tape that shows voting machines are starting the day with 0 votes. An investigation by the Georgia Secretary of State's office sustained findings that Fulton County violated official election record document processes when it was discovered that 36 out of 37 advanced voting precincts in Fulton County, Georgia, failed to sign the tabulation tapes as required by SEB rules. The investigation also found that officials at 32 sites did not verify their 0 tapes. Cross said at the December hearing, these signed tapes are the sole legal certification that the reported totals are authentic. Otherwise, we don't know anything. Fulton County produced 0 signed tabulated tapes in early voting. He said that he had obtained 77 megabytes of data from the county through an open records request, and this included 134 tabulated tapes, representing 315,000 votes, none of which were signed. He noted other irregularities in the election, including polling locations being open impossibly late hours, like 2:09 in the morning. And he had found duplicated scanner serial numbers where the memory devices were moved from one scanner and printed on an alternate scanner. These are not clerical errors. They are catastrophic breaks in chain of custody and certification, Cross said, adding, because no tape was ever legally certified, Fulton County had no lawful authority to certify its advanced voting results to the Secretary of State, yet it did. Secretary Raffensperger, complete cuck jerk face that he is, accepted and folded those uncertified numbers into Georgia's official total without questioning them. Safest election ever. This is not partisan. This is statutory. This is law. When the law demands 3 signatures on tabulated tapes and the county fails to follow the rules, those 315,000 votes are, by definition, uncertified. Cross is demanding that the SEB impose sanctions on Fulton County, having them publicly acknowledge their violations, and for the state to decertify Fulton County's 2020 advanced voting results. It's not to change who sits in the White House or what the score was, but instead to place an indelible and permanent asterisk on the record and finally force accountability. I am wholly in favor of this. This, to me, would be the final admission. This would, to me, would be a necessary admission that, and a sign that we're looking to move forward with having healthy elections. I think that this is, I may surprise me. I think this is a very important thing. You're all asking for accountability. You're all asking for there to be transparency. That's exactly the flaw we had in the 2020 elections. There was zero accountability for whatever BS shenanigans were going on there. And there was no transparency. In fact, there was a lot of purposeful obfuscation. So how do you fix that? You fix that by there being a permanent stain on the history, on Georgia's history for having fair and proper elections, which is like an embarrassment to the Secretary of State. This embarrassment should hang on Brad Raffensperger's shoulders and the state of Georgia and Fulton County's shoulders forever, not simply to ensure that Georgia itself engages in making sure that they have transparently fair and proper elections, properly certified elections that have reliable integrity, but as a warning of the humiliation that will be hanged on the shoulders of any state or secretary of state or county that is so willfully disregarding in its own election policy and law. That should be something that is a stain that stays there forever. You don't want to be a Raffensperger. Don't make yourself a Raffensperger. But in order for that phrase to enter the lexicon of don't make yourself a Raffensperger, is you need to actually have Raffensperger be publicly shamed for the crap job he did in the 2020 elections in running Georgia's state election. And the only way you have that is if there is a public recognition that this was wrong. This state was wrong. This was not a properly certified election, and that he's full of crap. Aside from it, a lot of people think that will agree with me. I think largely because they just want to sort of hold up for Trump. Then that whole phone call there, that hour and 2-minute long phone call he had there, which Fannie tried getting him freaking indicted for because she's a freaking lunatic psychopath who's a narcissist and just looking out for her own for fluffing her own feathers, trying to build her a claim with the left because she's a corrupt, evil, terrible human being. But it's not about even Fannie. It's not about Trump. It's about the future. It's about looking toward the future where we can basically tell secretaries of state, they're the ones who run these elections in each state, hey, don't become the next Raffensperger. Make sure your elections have pinpoint integrity that can be and genuine transparency. It's also a stain on Wray. Chris Wray, head of the FBI, who called this, the safest election in history. These people need to be embarrassed. Only by embarrassing them, by scoffing them, mocking them, having them held up and labeled as being for the utter failure that they engaged in the 2020 election, can we start to build toward a future where that doesn't happen again. Because that accountability, that shame will make people, it will, what's the word I'm looking for with a C? Cower? It will cull other secretaries of state from basically disregarding the law and saying, well, I'm the king of the mansion here. I've been appointed by the king of the mansion. So I think that's a very, very important thing. She interviewed the Russian lady used to frame Flynn. Oh. Yeah, I saw that. Svetlana Lokova. All right. I mean, the Flynn story literally goes back to 2016. So it's not something I feel like an urgency I have to get on tonight. The Epstein files are the... Yes, that's a very good way of saying it. It's a very, very good way of saying it. There's really no better way to phrase it. There were angels in the end zone on Thursday. Go Hawks. Yeah. Yeah. I guess so. Pinochet says, play the clip, Joe. It was a bloody sock. Deal with it. It was 20 years ago, not 100. I'm gonna stop looking for that clip. I don't think I've ever looked. I don't think I've ever looked at that. What else did you have for me there? I was just looking to see if I could find it. I did find something. Biden, Pinochet says Biden gave that Georgia election worker who rigged the election the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That was the proof. All we needed to see. If you know, you know. It's true. It's true. It was all crap. It was all crap. Such crap. That's why they need to be shamed. That's why they need to be humiliated. Where are we at here? Where are we at here? All right. Where are my likes at? I have to see where my likes are at. Are you kidding me? First of all, on Rumble, I have 37 likes. 162 of you and 37 likes. That's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Where am I at over here? This 220 like. Come on. There's 500 you watching. 220 likes. Come on. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Come out here with pink eye for you people, and I can't even I come out here with my pink eye. All right. Let's start by let's get to talking about Tom Homan and AmFest. Let's get into AmFest, and we'll start with Tom Homan because everyone loves Tom Homan. This was before AmFest.
I don't know what the hell's the matter with everybody up in Congress? People are dying every day. ICE is arresting 3 times as many criminals that the Biden administration did. We're taking public safety threats and national security threats off the street every single day. We got over 600,000 illegal aliens with criminal histories walking the streets of this country. We got less than 5,000 deportation officers. This should be a no-brainer. The more resources we get, if we get this bill passed, we got more agents on the road. We buy more beds, we get more transportation flights. More agents means more bad guys arrested, taken off the streets of this country every single day. Every day we arrest a public safety threat or national security threat, this makes this country much safer. Who the hell would be against that? And I get irritated, I get pissed off because I'm sick of meeting angel moms and dads. You want to talk about family separation? They bury their children. So I've done this since 1984. I've worked for 6 different presidents. No one has had the success of the Trump administration. We got the most secure border in the history of this nation today. But we need more border wall. Border walls save lives. Women and children can't get over that wall, which means they go to a place where there's not a wall. And what's waiting on them? The men and women of the Border Patrol who take care of the humanitarian needs and save their lives. We already got fentanyl seizures down half. Fentanyl seizures should be 100%. We should have 0 fentanyl come to this country. We need money to help secure that border at a higher level. Stop the fentanyl from coming in. Stop the sex trafficking of women and children. Stop the known suspected terrorists coming across that border. Right now, I was looking at the stats today. ICE is arresting a record number of known suspected terrorists in this country, along with the FBI. With more money, we can arrest more of these people, make this country safer. This is a nonpartisan issue. Let's make this country safe again.
And I just want to point this out to you all. I want to point out to you just how bad things were under Biden. So I heard this report, and this is like a 5-minute report. I heard this report. I was like, I need to share this. My audience needs to see this just so they could. I mean, we saw the numbers. We saw the numbers as to like how many were coming in under that evil, corrupt President Biden. You want to know why it was so bad under him? How hard they were working to rip our border to shreds? This is testimony from, what's his name again? Former U.S. Border Chief Aaron Heitke, who served under 5 administrations. when he testified from Congress, he explained why it is that we had no border under Biden.
Distinguished members, thank you for this opportunity. The only true consequence we have to slow down and discourage people from coming into the United States illegally is sending them back to their country of origin. Throughout the first 3+ years of this administration, I saw a steady decrease in the countries we could send people back to. For the first time,
He was testifying. This is not something that just happened. This was him testifying under the Biden administration.
in my 25 years and under 5 different administrations, whether through neglect or on purpose, I saw a large-scale lapse in our ability to return people to their country of origin. The inability to send people home meant that most people being arrested for illegal entry would either have to be detained or released. The current administration, however, from day one, made a point of decreasing the amount of detention space available nationwide. Immigration and Customs Enforcement's funding for detention has steadily been cut and private detention eliminated. The fact that so many illegal aliens are being released into the United States spread worldwide very quickly. As this happened, the numbers the Border Patrol encountered illegally crossing the border increased exponentially. The impact to me and my agents were significant. Sectors were ordered to take in and process all the illegal aliens encountered on the border. The Border Patrol saw groups of hundreds and thousands coming into the United States and turning themselves in. These numbers pulled 80, 90, sometimes 100% of the agents on duty away from the border. Border Patrol zones across Texas, Arizona, and California had no agent presence for weeks and months at a time. Those who did not want to be caught could simply walk in. We have no idea who and what entered our country over this time. Throughout 2022 and 23, I sent agents to Texas and Arizona to count gotaways. Those sectors could not even put enough agents in the field to see what they'd missed. Simultaneously, in San Diego, we had an exponential increase in significant interest aliens. These are aliens with significant ties to terrorism. Prior to this administration,
terrorists just coming in.
The San Diego sector averaged 10 to 15 SIA arrests per year.
So 10 to 15 of these people with terrorist histories would be arrested in San Diego each year before the Biden administration.
Once word was out the border was far easier to cross, San Diego went to over 100 SIAs in 2022, well over that in 2023, and even more than that registered this year. These are only the ones we caught. At the time, I was told I could not release any information on this increase in SIAs or mention any of the arrests. The administration was trying to convince the public there was no threat at the border. Fentanyl is another issue. The San Diego area sees between 80 and 90% of the methamphetamine and fentanyl seizures annually for our entire country. With little enforcement at the border, these drugs were coming through en masse. During my last year in San Diego, the price for a single pill of fentanyl, for example, went from $10 to 25 cents.
$10 down to 25 cents. Those of you who are not understanding why that would be, it's because when you have a massive supply, prices come crashing down. And we had so much fentanyl coming across our border that instead of being $10 a bill, the price was slashed to 25 cents. That means it's basically coming in, and this doesn't work really, it doesn't work exactly like this, but it's basically 40 times as much, up to 40 times as much fentanyl coming in as was coming in before Biden.
To make matters worse, during 2022 and 23, I had to shut down San Diego traffic checkpoints, which are critical for drug interdiction, because the resources had been diverted to the process and release mission. The large numbers also had and still have a negative impact on the San Diego community. I had to release illegal aliens by the hundreds each day into communities who could not support them. To quiet the problem, 2 flights a week were provided from San Diego to Texas. These flights simply brought aliens that would have been released in San Diego over to Texas.
Oh, so we're just moving them around. We're not getting rid of them. We're just moving them where they're less annoying to deal with.
Each flight cost approximately $150,000.
All to cover up how many were coming in.
This was the administration's way to try and quiet the border-wide crisis. Once these flights were stopped and the releases continued, California saw the true economic impact. I received calls from the governor's office, local mayors, and hospital administrators asking me if we could keep injured aliens in custody so the federal government would pay the medical bills. Through pressure from the administration, my headquarters became more interested in the fiction that being portrayed in the media and not at all concerned with reality. Each time we asked for help in dealing with a new issue, it fell on deaf ears. At times in San Diego, we had 2,000 or more aliens sitting in between the fences asking to turn themselves in. I was told to move them out of sight of the media. Meanwhile, Border Patrol agents are continually forgotten and neglected by the media and this administration. These agents deal with death, women and children that have been raped, abused, trafficked, bought and sold, families that have spent months in terrible conditions, sickness, and despair. If you look at the dramatic rise in the number of suicides within the Border Patrol, it is directly correlated with the migrant surge. The agents have been pushed beyond their limit, and this has greatly impacted their physical and mental health. While current numbers of aliens crossing our border are lower in comparison in recent months, there's a reason for this. After nearly 4 years, this administration finally started to ask Mexico for help in slowing down the traffic through their country.
Remember how they said, oh, Biden's fixing it? He's fixing it. He's explaining why it is at near the end of his of Biden administration, right? They were saying, oh, no, it's better. It's better. Why is it getting better? Because they actually decided to ask Mexico to help.
This and other actions make a difference, but why has it taken so long? All of these tactics were being used before this administration took office, but this administration stopped or greatly limited them. I'm also concerned this will not be maintained. The problems we are facing at the border have solutions. These solutions can be quite simple and cost far less than the mess currently occupying so much time and money. The return to a policy of enforcing the law and returning illegal aliens to their home countries is required. Thank you.
So again, that was, if you're wondering who that was former U.S. Border Chief Aaron Heitke, who served under 5 administrations. So he understood what it took to actually, shut the border down. The reason I bring this up is because I was about to start talking to you about, because I was talking to you about Tom Homan. Because one of the things he left out in that report was how many children went missing. Hundreds of thousands of children who went missing and presumably being trafficked or killed under Biden's let's not have a border policy.
I want to mention one other thing.
This is Tom Homan giving an update on that.
Just reported last week.
Because now we say there's 2.5 million illegals have been deported from this country. Most of them by self-deportation. We incentivize them to leave. 600,000 have been removed. 1.9 million have left. But here he is about to talk about the issue I was just discussing.
300,000 children went missing under Joe Biden. They weren't looking for them. They couldn't find them. So far, the Trump administration kept its promise to American people. They've already located 129,000 of these children, thanks to the work of FBI, DHS, and HHS. I want to mention one other thing.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And this is why, I mean, these are real lives. These are human lives which have been destroyed simply because of the mess that the Democrats created. And yeah, that it explains to you why it is that when Tom Homan comes out at AmFest, he just gets reactions like this.
President Trump made a promise.
This wasn't the one I wanted. Dang it. Dang it. Give me a moment. Sorry about that. This is the clip I wanted.
President Trump made a promise. We're going to do everything we can to find these kids. Thanks to the work of the FBI, DHS, and Homeland HHS, I'm proud to say we've already located 129,000 of these missing kids.
I'm going to get up for him. $129,000
children that the last administration wasn't even looking for. President Trump.
If for that alone, whatever it is that the left ever wants to say about Trump, for that reason alone, it was a miracle by God that Trump won. For that reason alone. If for no other reason, and there are countless other reasons, For that reason alone, that is something that no one on the left could even dispute. There's no one who actually, has any inkling whatsoever of arguing in good faith. So, God bless President Trump and Tom Homan. So AmFest, what was AmFest all about? Well, AmFest, in one regard, is all about JD Vance. There's Andrew Colvett, Turning Point USA, telling us about their strong support for JD Vance in 2028.
It's funny. I know I got a lot of headlines, but if anybody was around the org in any way, shape, or form, they knew that Charlie was very close to the vice president and had, basically endorsed him already for months beforehand. So it was no surprise for us. It was no surprise for those who were close to us. And it was a great event to do it at. I mean, it was kind of like, let's just be public about what everybody kind of knew was true behind the scenes. And so, yeah, it was, we're all in behind Vice President JD Vance. Charlie considered him a generational talent and somebody that could lead this nation forward. We're very happy for the here and now. So we're going to kind of let the next year play out. But heading into 2028, we're excited to get behind him, and the machine that Charlie built and that's still in place at Turning Point is going to be all in for the vice president. It's funny.
So they're all in for JD Vance. I'm just going to share these thoughts that I have about JD Vance before we go further, and I have a lot more about about AmFest and what happened with Turning Point USA. I like JD Vance I like the 2024, 2025 JD Vance we've seen a lot. He's great. He has been great. He's been phenomenal. And I recognize that he is the heir apparent to Donald Trump in 2028. I have mild concerns, 2 mild concerns that I want to share with you about JD Vance. Well, I guess technically 3. While still saying that, look, he's the heir apparent right now. And that and none of it comes from anything that happened in 2024 or 2025. It's not really. My first concern is it's 2024, 2025 JD Vance that I really like a lot more than I liked him in 2022. So it's relatively new. That makes me a little bit concerned. Number 2 is a lot of times you'll see someone who's great in a role without necessarily being great in a different role. So now he's in the role of vice president, which could augur a success in the future for his role as president, were he to be elected. But it doesn't, he's more of a backseat kind of guy who gives really strong support rather than being, from what we've seen, a front man. Did great in the debate against Tim Walz. Was great there, but at times he can come off a little bit flat. And I'm nitpicking. I admit that I'm nitpicking. This is not in me in any way, shape, or form killing JD Vance. I think that he has potential to be a phenomenal president. He does. I'm simply saying I have mild, as of now, week of Christmas 2025, you asked me about JD Vance as a candidate for 2028. I'm like, he's pretty good. I can't think of someone who I would say is ahead of him. I just don't want to, I don't feel like I'm ready to be married to him as that spot today because of these concerns I'm referencing. The relative newness of this, the fact that I don't know that he will naturally gravitate toward that role. He seems great in a supporting role. He's not someone who tends to start the conversation. He'll pick it up and do well with it once it's been started. That's different from what, Trump starts the conversation. For example, Trump starts the conversation about birthright citizenship. about building the wall. I don't remember hearing ever J.D. Vance start something that became lightning in a bottle the way you can with countless things that Trump has said, done, advocated for. So I don't remember ever seeing anything of the kind with J.D. Vance, which to me feels more like a great support guy rather than the leader that we need. You know what I'm saying? He's a phenomenal support guy. Zero complaints. In fact, much, much better than I ever dreamed he would be as a support guy. That's not the same thing as being the innovator of pushing things forward in a healthy way. And I'll give you an example, and this is not saying that I would put Vivek ahead of him, but I have seen Vivek innovate certain ideas as to how to make American life better. I don't know that they would work. They haven't caught on nearly the same way. I just don't remember ever hearing, J.D. Vance innovate any sort of solutions for how to make life better. So when you're looking at someone who's going to be an optimal leader, that is, I think, a fair critique that, yeah, he's been great in his role as vice president. Phenomenal choice by Trump. Excellent choice by Trump. Much better than most of his choices for any other role. I mean, just phenomenal choice. But that's not choosing him to be the next president. That's choosing him to be vice president. And when he's excelled as vice president, and who knows, maybe he'll grow into that role too, the same way he grew into vice president in a way that surpassed our wildest imaginations. He could. I'm just simply saying that. And he can be a little bit wooden at times. He can be. Like someone who you just sort of like listening to, and you just sort of like, And all is going to sound, if you put all this together, it sounds like I'm killing him as a presidential candidate. And I'm not, because I admit that right now he's the best. He's the best. And he's been phenomenal as vice president. Phenomenal. In every way, shape, and form. Intelligent, articulate, sharp, at times witty, personable for the most part. Sometimes he gets wooden. Sometimes he's personable. He has more personality than DeSantis. But yeah, as far as whether he can evolve into being the president who I think would be like, the perfect follow-up to Trump. Right now he's leading the field. I just wouldn't want to say that I'm married to him as my choice going forward. But I know a lot of people say this, and I wasn't advocating for Vivek. I was trying to use Vivek as an example to show you don't need to be president to be innovative, or to show certain character traits which you can easily understand how that's a very, very beneficial thing for a president to have those character traits, which we've seen in spades from Trump. So, like tariffs. I mean, there's just one thing after another that he's been bringing in that have been new ideas, which I don't remember hearing anything of the kind from J.D. Vance. Now, he hasn't been in a role where he's been called upon to do that so much. Senators don't really necessarily do that. Vice presidents don't do that. So he hasn't really been in that kind of role. And he's wicked smart. He's a crazy smart guy. He's very smart. So he could be great. Who knows? Who knows? So AmFest happened. There was a bunch of great speeches. Tulsi Gabbard did really well. She was talking about Islamism and a topic that was actually kind of horrifying. This is Tulsi talking about and taking on Islamism. Tulsi's another individual who has grown by leaps and bounds on MAGA over the last year or so, and well earned.
Which issued a call to action to use American legal and political systems to implement Sharia law. This is already underway in places. This is already underway in places like Houston. This is not something that may possibly happen. It is already happening here within our borders. Paterson, New Jersey is proud to call themselves the first Muslim city.
I live 5 minutes from Paterson. There's a lot of Muslims there.
They are working to implement in their own governments these Islamic principles that are forced on people through the use of laws or violence. The bottom line is this: when we talk about the threat of Islamism, this political ideology, there is no such thing as individual freedom or liberty. As Charlie said over and over again, it is fundamentally incompatible with our nation's foundation of freedom.
True.
And at its core, when we understand that our freedom comes from God and no one else, we understand the seriousness of this Islamist ideology threat, because it means they deny that God is the one who has bestowed this right to freedom in every one of us.
There you go. There you go. And if you have concerns, if you just want to take a look at a country which has been far too lax the following story, with respect to allowing Sharia law and Sharia concepts to destroy their culture. I'm about to share with you a story right now that it's unlikely you have heard. I won't call it breaking news because it's a story I pulled from the Gateway Pundit, but it's unlikely you've heard this story. And I'm telling you now, you will be horrified by what I'm about to share with you. You're about to be horrified. I'm warning you now. If you get queasy, if you're easily queasy, you may want to just sort of like look away, come back in 5 minutes. Hit the like and subscribe before you do that, because hey, you should be hitting that as a regular thing. But this is just nauseating. I warn you all, stories that make you go. Iraqi migrant convicted of raping a 100-year-old woman will not be deported from Sweden. This is not here. This happened in Sweden. They had an Iraqi migrant, whatever the hell that means, convicted of raping a 100-year-old woman. 100 years old. They're not going to deport him. No. No. Oh my God. There's Shakir Mohammed. A 38-year-old Iraqi home care worker, Shakir Mohammed Shakir, was sentenced to 4 years in prison for raping a vulnerable 100-year-old woman in Stockholm, Sweden. Now, over here, if he lived in Minnesota, he would be put on unpaid leave. No, paid leave. He'd be put on paid leave. Excuse me. He'd be put on paid leave. Although Shakir was convicted of this rape, he was acquitted of a separate rape charge involving a 94-year-old woman and thus avoided deportation. What? Oh, but he didn't. We can't convict him on the 94-year-old woman. So, you know. Oh my God. The incident occurred in October when the 100-year-old victim was suffering from chest pains. Instead of receiving an ambulance, she was visited by Shakir, who was employed in the home service sector. According to the woman's interrogation testimony, Shakir told her, quote, "They have said that you should be anointed." He proceeded to use an ointment and an unknown object to assault her. Despite her yelling at him to stop, he continued the abuse for approximately 10 minutes without responding to her. Then I was ready to cry, and I thought, you work here, and then you do this to people and against women? The 100-year-old woman recounted in her statement. The prosecutor requested his expulsion from the country because Shakir is a citizen of Iraq, but he was rejected. Judge Muhammad Ali, who was appointed in June 2025, refused to issue the deportation order. Judge Muhammad Ali purely a coincidence, obviously, who was appointed in June. He refused to issue the deportation order. Swedish news outlet Expressen reported that the judge said that Shakir is an established in Sweden and has good contact with his daughter, who's a Swedish citizen. The court further found that there were no humiliating or degrading elements when Shakir raped the woman. I mean, aside from aside from all the raping, there was nothing remotely degrading. Hide your wife, hide your kids. They're raping everyone out here. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson shared on X, I believe many people like me have reacted to the horrific news about a 100-year-old woman who was raped in a place where she should have been safe and cared for. Instead, it became a site for a terrible assault. It makes me angry and strengthens my conviction that we must bring about change. If you're not a Swedish citizen and committed such horrific acts, you forfeited your right to be in Sweden. Anything else is offensive and deeply disrespectful to the crime victim. Next year, Sweden will have the toughest legislation in all of Scandinavia when it comes to deporting foreign citizens who commit serious crimes. Sweden is also leading the charge to change the application of the European Convention so that ties won't play this role. No previous government has gone this far to make Sweden safer. So that's him campaigning, saying, don't hate me for this. However, I want to go even further and also review those parts of the Refugee Convention that hinder the deportation of refugees who commit crimes. This coddling of serious criminals must stop. My government will always work to protect crime victims and thus their right to redress. As you can see here. Jagtrur Menga Med Mig. I can let me try. That was an accident. That was on accident. That was on accident. So there you go. Sick, twisted dude. What a sick man. 100 years old. But he didn't do the 94-year-old, at least as far as we know. Can't prove he did the 94-year-old. I need to catch up on some chats because people were talking to me about the Yankees and I didn't want to hear it. But Philip Coggins saying all this whining about the Yankees blowing it when you're not even a real New York sports fan. Move to Dallas so you can be with your Romo sapiens. You cannot tell me that the New York Jets or the New York Giants are a real New York team when they play in the Meadowlands. So no, they're the only team that plays in New York is the Bills. Sorry. They play in the Meadowlands. They're not from New York. That's what made me turn on them. And rightfully so. Are you telling me that when the Cleveland Browns went to Baltimore and became the Baltimore Ravens, that there was a duty on them just because they changed their name? Ridiculous. I was a huge Jet fan under Richard Todd in the Mud Bowl, which was a disaster with the New York Sack Exchange. I was all in on Gang Green. I was all in on them. New York Sack Exchange, Marty Lyons, Joe Klecko, Mark Gastineau, Abdul Salam. Those four beasts of a defensive line. Huge. Big fan of Richard Todd, Wesley Walker, Freeman McNeil, Johnny Lamb Jones, Mike Augustiniak. See? You don't remember names like that from 4 decades ago unless you were a big fan, big-time fan. But then they left me. I didn't leave them. They left me. So, yeah, I am a New York sports fan. But you have to be from playing in New York. It's kind of the rules. Were you accosted by a guy who claimed he was Jesus? I saw a Facebook video just now and the guy sounded like you. No. No, I was not. He made a great speech in Europe for free speech. Are you talking about J.D. Vance? Yeah, look, he can speak well. He's very smart. I'm talking about innovating policies that would help America. And look, if there's anyone who's capable of developing that, I would think he would be. He's, like I said, he's very smart, genuinely smart. One of the smartest politicians that there are. He's really smart. I'm just saying. I didn't hear all the speeches at TPUSA, but hearing Glenn Beck's speech, he was fantastic. He talked right to the young attendees. Super great speech. All right. Now, I saw Ben Shapiro's 20-minute speech. He went hard after Candace, Tucker, and Megyn Kelly for basically platforming them. And that's where I really want to go next. I want to get into some of the controversies that arose. I sort of diverted there when we got Tulsi and Tom Homan, because what he said at AmFest. Most of you are aware of the fact that Nikki Minaj came to AmFest. I'll spend a few minutes talking about Nikki Minaj. There was certain things that people were calling weird at AmFest. Okay? Certain things people were calling weird. Here's one thing that people were calling weird, aside from Nikki Minaj coming out there. Here's one thing that people call weird. And I really want to get your feedback on this. What do you think of this?
And you can see from behind me, this is a recreation of the tent where Charlie Kirk lost his life at Utah University in September, and people are taking selfies with it. You can see from behind.
What do you think of that? So at the event, they have a recreation of the place where Charlie Kirk was killed. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. It's creepy, strange. Ew, disgusting. Strange-ish. I don't think so. That's effed up. Kind of messed up. That was my initial reaction. I actually saw this on a post from a guy who I've met before. He's a liberal. Bashing it. Saying, beyond bizarre, this is Really American, which is a lefty account. Turning Point USA actually recreates a scene where Charlie Kirk was murdered so attendees could take photos in front of it. Deranged behavior. I don't know if I call it deranged. And you have some people saying TPUSA set up the event the way they wanted it. And then I started thinking of it along these lines. My first thought was, this is really weird, and I kind of agree with Really American on this. It's a bizarre thing to do. It's a bizarre thing to do. It's not bad timing. It's timing that they purposely are saying. So then I started thinking about like along this lines, like it is sort of treating him like he's a messianic figure. Some people have stronger reactions. And then I started looking at it as a memorial. And as a memorial, I kind of get it more. I kind of understand it more. My first thought was like, what the hell's wrong with you? Why would you do that? Why the heck? Who came up with this stupid, insane idea? That was my first reaction. And I mentioned it to Lady Logic. And she had the same reaction as me and as many of you. Saying things like weird, gross, icky, don't like it at all. And then I started thinking about it like, as a memorial, I can understand it, I guess. But you would think a memorial would just be like, a statue of him. That would be more appropriate. And then I thought of it as being like a messianic thing. Like maybe they're trying to make it like messianic. Almost like, that's his cross. Like that vignette. This vignette here, recreating with the backdrop where he had behind him, that's almost like his cross, which that's stranger. That's stranger. But I do think a statue of him would have been appropriate. I think a statue of him would have been appropriate. A really good likeness of him. So I thought that was a little strange. Hold on. I got a bunch of rants. DST says, did you see the illegals hopping planes to wherever they want to, including delivery of children to unvetted sponsor? Yeah. We are now offering, Hands One says, we're now offering 3,000 to self-deport. None announced on X. Sent you on DM of it. Pinochet, 3,000 a lot cheaper than it costs us to get rid of them in general. Pinochet says, the fact JD Vance memes were a thing. Oh, and frankly, Martha, I don't care. JD should cater the 20 to 40 crowd as much as possible for policy. Okay. Hands One says, platforming is the leftist argument. I don't care who people platform. I will decide not to watch them or listen to them and not argue for censorship. I agree with you on that. Also says, I can go to a museum and see the car Kennedy was shot in and take pictures of it and me next to it. So that's the actual car. That's different than a recreation. To me, a little bit. Like that car is part of history. That blue convertible is part of history. Pinochet says, who is she to TPUSA, and is that the murder scene recreation or just the default tent everyone sees? I think that was supposed to be a recreation. It looks like if you look at it, it looks like there's even a sign there, which is supposed to be like marking it as like a recreation. That's what this thing over here looks like to me. So Jackal says, oh, wow, 3 years. I'm going to take a shot just for you. 36 freaking months. 36 months. I know that we had Nathan earlier who had 37 months. I know that. But I missed his 3-year anniversary. This is your 3-year anniversary. I'm going to take a shot for you, Jackals. Half a shot. Salut, l'chaim. Happy anniversary. No matter how you slice it, verges uncomfortably into blasphemy. Not something Kirk himself would have wanted, not something their faith should tolerate. It's weird. It's a little weird. It's a little weird. Go Seahawks. There you go. There you go. Linda's excited about the Seahawks. See, you and Richard Parker have stuff in common. I actually noticed recently a commercial, which the at the end of the commercial, one of the people said, "Go Birds," and at first I was like, "Oh, they're talking about the Seahawks," and I was like, "No, wait, they're talking about the Ravens. No, maybe they're talking about the Eagles. Maybe they're talking about the Cardinals." I was like, "That's pretty smart. That's pretty smart. You can cover a whole bunch of teams in one shot. A whole bunch of teams in one shot when you say Go Birds." It's probably one or two more I haven't even thought of. Are there one or two more? Probably one or two more. Kimmy Hunt says that's the less framing of the tenant. It's always at AmFest every year. Okay. That definitely changes it a lot. That changes it a lot. I still would think about not having it. I still would think about not having it at AmFest. And really it depends on, really, to be fair, Kimmy, it really depends what's written on this little sign here. So I need to ask someone who's at AmFest, did they go up and read the sign there? Right? Because the sign there kind of labels what it's all about. So. But that's an important potential change in the narrative, 100%. Okay, so that was one thing that came up. Other people were critical of how she came out. This is Tim Dillon, who's hating hard on AmFest.
This turning point kind of abomination that the right wing of this country has turned into like a bad reality show. And it's all of the fault of everyone, by the way. It's the fault of everyone speaking and everyone attending, and there's nobody that gets everything about this is weird and uncomfortable for everyone. And I'm not saying she killed her husband or knew about it or whatever. I'm saying the guy got shot 3 months ago, and she walks out to a pyrotechnic display, and then she goes, "We're going to elect J.D. Vance." It's weird that that's where her head is at.
Okay. Now, this is a very easy game to play, to just be very negative. You're sort of not giving any sort of direction as to what you think would be healthier. But I get what he's saying. I'm going to let him finish talking, and then I'll weigh in some more on this. I get what he's saying, that the role of Erica Kirk here is unusual.
It's difficult for many people to relate to. It's not relatable for people that talked about how Hollywood isn't relatable and Hollywood is out of touch. This looks a lot like Hollywood to most people. And to go out through a stream of fireworks and sparklers and stand there in a glittering pantsuit and talk about electing J.D. Vance 3 months after your husband was killed, many people feel that there is something off about that. And we're starting to see that political people are the exact same thing as the Hollywood elites that they all love to dunk on. And we all look at this. This is Megan Thee Stallion twerking at the Kamala rally. This is deeply unsettling to a lot of people. It feels like you're being played. You feel it. It seems off. You feel like this is
There's a lot of very feel. This is how he feels. I don't know if this is how a lot of people feel. This is how he feels.
Coordinated and choreographed spectacle so that you are played. They want your money.
Okay. So that's the clip of Tim Dillon bashing AmFest and, let's face it, Erica Kirk for the way she's handled this whole thing, that it just feels very orchestrated or callous or indifferent to whatever. And you will correctly respond. Many of you will correctly respond. Everybody mourns differently. And I've said that many times, and that's 100% true. That's 100% true. At the same time, this is not mourning. Meaning this is something she would have been doing in a lesser capacity had Charlie not died. So it's not mourning. Mourning is something you do because you're in mourning. She's not doing this because she's in mourning. I'm assuming she is in mourning. In other words, that she is still feeling it. I do think that she probably does still feel it every single day. And this is how, when she's in mourning, she deals with this scenario. Okay. We also have Nikki Minaj. I'm going to come back to this in a moment. But let's just cover Nikki Minaj for a quick moment here. Where is it? Where do I have Nikki Minaj here? definitely have it here somewhere. It's one of these tabs. There it is. I know how to hear. Here's Nikki Minaj with Erica Kirk at AmFest.
So, with regard to the current administration, what has been maybe the biggest surprise for you, or something that you just really has been put on your heart that you've learned about our president and our vice president?
Well, I have the utmost respect and admiration for our president. He has, I don't know if he even knows this, but he's given so many people hope that there's a chance to beat the bad guys and to win, and to do it with your head held high and your integrity intact. He's from Queens, New York, like me.
And me.
So, but what it's
All three of us from Queens. We're like three peas in a pod. Me, Donald, and Nikki.
shown me personally is sometimes, you know, even in the worst feeling times in your life, you think that you're never going to come back from it, but you do. And our president shows that. He's been through every single thing a person could be through publicly, having to constantly be lied on. It's not really that funny until you are in that person's shoes that's being lied on. You'll never understand what it feels like. That person is a human being. They have a family who has to read those lies. And that's not, and it's just not fair. But this administration is full of people with heart and soul. And they make me proud of them. Our vice president, he makes me, well, I love both of them, but they're both powerful men, smart, strong, all of that, but both of them have a very uncanny ability to be someone that you relate to. I can relate to them. When I hear them speak, I know that they're one of us. Like, I know that they're not, don't you guys agree? They haven't lost touch of the world. You know, they're still connected to the world and what's happening in the world, with the younger people and older people, with richer people and not so rich people. They have the ability to still connect and be real and make us feel proud to be American.
Okay. All right. Now, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I have a lot of thoughts on this. I have a lot of thoughts on the whole role of Erica Kirk. I have a lot of thoughts on everything that we see going on here. And I'm just going to start unloading them. Let's just pause for a second and recognize that this woman here, as popular as she is, and whatever number of tens of millions, hundreds of millions of followers that she has on various social media platforms, I don't know, maybe it's even over 1 billion. I have no idea. This woman is clearly, she's not Aristotle, right? I mean, that's we're all on the same page there, right? We also recognize that so many people in her profession who sound no less or more intelligent than she does, you know, would have said the exact same sentences, exact same 3 minutes talking about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris So just because she's saying it about people I like doesn't make me feel it feels loserish to be all excited about Nicki Minaj being there, from the sense of like, yay, some people in Hollywood like us. It's like it feels like I feel like a loser being happy about something like that. And I'm in no way, shape, personally, I'm in no way, shape, or form moved by that. The only reason to feel remotely moved by Nicki Minaj is the fact that you feel like maybe she holds influence over some people. And then I ask myself, Taylor Swift had like 1 billion followers, and how many of them came out and voted for Kamala? Not too many. Not too many. And the ones who did come out and vote for Kamala, how many of them would have gone out and voted for Kamala anyway, even if she never opened her big fat yap about, how she hated Trump and how she loves Kamala. So I don't know that these folks here hold the sway over their fans the way we tend to think of them holding that sway. It's a very old school type of perspective and doesn't appreciate the cynicism of the Zoomer generation, that they've been inundated their entire lives with commercials of various celebrities or famous folks trying to sell them stuff. And that while that probably worked a lot better in my generation when it was a relatively newer thing to happen, it doesn't really hold the same sway anymore, because they're so used to hearing their heroes or your people you idolize telling you what type of camera to buy, or what type of grill to get, or what type of person to vote for. So you just sort of, after a certain while, it just becomes all just, there's another celebrity endorsement, and you just become cynical about it. So in that sense, I don't think that this woman here holds nearly the sway that people have. But the question is this a good thing or is this a bad thing that Nicki Minaj is on stage at AmFest? A friend of mine, Diligent Denizen, is very angry that, this is a sign of the changing of the times at Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk never would have done something like this, never, ever would have done something like this, because she's married to someone who's allegedly accused of touching 16-year-old girls. I don't even know who the hell she's married to weigh in on the veracity of that claim. Maybe she is, maybe she isn't, maybe he is, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I literally don't even know the name of her husband. So much less whatever claims may have been leveled against her husband. I do think it's a little bit nitpicky to say that someone who has a relationship with someone who's a bad person, now that, when did that story come out about her husband? Did she even know about it? Like, I just sort of feel as if we're getting into all these different purity tests, which is definitely not a good thing. All of these things feel very beta to me. It feels very beta to be looking for the Nicki Minaj's of the world to be endorsing our candidates as inarticulately as she does, saying nothing really new or earth-shattering, and just saying it about a person that we're happy she's saying it about him, rather than saying it about against his opponents, right? Because and it's in part because we're so used to hearing the leaders of Hollywood come out and bashing Republicans and Trump in particular, that we're just sort of relieved to see someone from that world who has a great deal of clout in that world bucking that trend and coming out in support of both Trump and J.D. Vance. So we're sort of, enthused by that, much more so than perhaps a hope that she is going to bring in new votes, or that she's going to, or that she's, going to speak to the youth, and now they're going to come out there now, or that I feel as if now my vote was the right vote, since Nicki Minaj agrees with me. So now I know it was the right vote. So that type of validation feels like something only a really insecure loser would really be seeking, it's not a level I've sunk to at this point in my life. And I'm like sitting there hoping Nicki Minaj or I don't mean whatever Taylor Swift's of the world, like their thoughts on politics is so foreign to me I guess they have some sway over the youth, and in that sense, it's a positive. I guess. I don't personally buy it. I don't think people come out and be like, "Oh, I was going to vote the other way, but now all of a sudden, Katy Perry is coming out and endorsing that guy, so I'm going to go in that direction." I don't buy it. I don't think that happens. I don't think that happens. Maybe there are 15-year-olds who are saying that, but they're not eligible to vote. So I don't think a 19-year-old comes out and says that and feels that way. Very, very few of them. 19 years old, 18, 19, 20 years old, that they're still so intellectually and emotionally immature that they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is what Nikki Minaj says. Now I'm going to be a Trump fan." What? No? I guess perhaps it could signal a changing of the culture where the youth is less against, people feel more emboldened to come out in support of Trump or Vance when a Nicki Minaj does it. Maybe that can do it. That's probably the biggest factor, is that it emboldens people who might already be inclined towards JD Vance or, the Republican, the GOP in general, to be more emboldened to actually say it out loud, because it's like, look, there's a split in Hollywood, so I'm not worried about being ostracized. Maybe? I don't know. But I think that it's making too big a deal out of this whole thing in general. It's like, I think that people make way too much of a deal out of Nicki Minaj in general. But the idea that she's coming on stage at AmFest, I don't think anyone's going to remember this in 2 months. No one's going to remember this moment in 2 months. Everyone's making like this is a really big deal. This is a really, really big deal. There's no way in hell anyone's remembering this in the next election. And sure as hell not remembering it in 2028. So in 2028, people were like, really? Nicki Minaj was at an AmFest? Now, if she becomes a regular there, I guess, perhaps. This is not a big deal. People are looking to make it a big deal. But I do think what happens with Turning Point USA is a much more significant deal. And I don't think this is necessarily a reflection of Turning Point USA. Everyone loves to invoke, what would Charlie have done? Basically taking the old Christian phrase and swapping Jesus for Charlie. What would Charlie do? Which I think that's probably, if I was a Christian, I would probably feel like that's pretty blasphemous. That's my gut as to how I would feel about that phrase. But that is certainly, people seem to be very quick to invoke Charlie. We saw Andrew Colvett in an earlier clip talking about how Charlie always loved JD Vance. He would have been all for this, and people saying Charlie never would have had Nicki Minaj on stage. There's no way he would have done that. And others saying, no, he would have. And it's like, look, here's the sad reality. This sad reality. Charlie's gone. It sucks. He's gone. And people trying to invoke it as if he was like as if he was some sort of perfect being or made the right call all the time, that we should be like, what would Charlie have wanted is ridiculous. In a way, it's actually offensive to him unintentionally. You're almost deifying him. What would Charlie have wanted? Just ask yourself, what does common sense dictate? Common sense is a lot more important than whatever the heck Charlie Kirk might have decided about this particular issue. Common sense is your friend. What does your religion tell you? You shouldn't be walking around saying, what would Charlie do? What would Charlie want? Even when it comes to TPUSA. And it's ironically the answer Charlie himself would have given. I can say that. Everyone else saying it. But that's not relevant, because who the heck cares? He was a great man who accomplished great things, but he's gone. So now you sort of have to sit there and move on and say, what is a healthy common sense approach to this scenario here? And not try to figure out and argue, what would Charlie have done? As if he wrote he wrote scripture. I mean, come on. He's a man. He did great things, accomplished great things, was murdered wrongfully, still a man, and certainly flawed. Made mistakes and decisions that he made and calls that he made, and sometimes politically. So trying to sit here, trying to invoke what would Charlie want is stupid. And it's degrading and arguably blasphemous. So no, they shouldn't be thinking about what Charlie Kirk would want. Unless it's something specifically related to you're honoring Charlie, so now let's honor his wishes and how we're going to honor him in a way that he would have liked. But as far as what a policy choice is or what direction we take and who we support for president and when we start coming out with that support, and even who you bring up on stage, asking what Charlie would want, I think is insane. Doesn't make any sense at all. And I don't think asking the question is something, and ironically, I don't think asking the question is something Charlie would want. So stop asking that question. But we should talk a little bit about the role of Erica Kirk here and the criticism that Tim Dillon made about how the whole thing feels very artificial when she comes out with she comes out 3 months removed from burying her husband to these fireworks and screaming, "Yay, Charlie! Yay, JD Vance!" And I thought his criticism was a little bit unhinged, in the sense that it was like really over the top and trying to find things that will be clickbaity in a way to try and bash Turning Point USA. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't baked within there some element of truth. So he took a little element of truth, went over the top with it in order to have a viral moment so that people will share that clip, which succeeded. But I can't argue with the notion that the role that the way Erica Kirk is acting, and the assumption that she was the perfect woman to fill in and step Charlie in Charlie's shoes in running Turning Point USA was, I think, something that may not have been thought out very well. Now, it could be that sometimes that's just the way things unfold when you're dealing with a dynamic situation, in a crisis situation. Here it is. Charlie Kirk is just killed, and you have this ongoing, very active, important organization, and someone's got to step in there and sort of take things over. And whether her decision is logical and rational and brilliant or the opposite of that, she's not really emotionally in a place to be making a decision that's going to be wise. No one could be in that time and moment, given what the fact that they just buried the love of their life, father of their 2 children. There's no way they can be in a place to make the most logical decision. It could, by coincidence, turn out that Erica Kirk is the right person. But for her to make that decision and be the final arbiter of that decision in that moment is kind of not really thinking things through. And this is important because Turning Point USA is a very important thing. You sort of have to step back for a moment and think, okay, she's dealing with something that no human would ever know how to deal with that properly, and making a critical decision about a really important organization. And is that really the way to go? She ended up getting the support of everyone at Turning Point USA, but I don't know if they gave that support because they thought it was logical, because they thought, I'm not arguing with this grieving widow. I'm not going on record as standing against a grieving widow. And I'm trying to take something away from her. But I do think it's important to sort of step back for a moment and say, she's been running the organization, and perhaps that's not something that's best for Turning Point USA or for our country. And this is not a knock on her as a person, because she seems to be a very talented person. I mean, few people are gifted with the levels of talent that Charlie had, but she seems fairly talented. That doesn't mean she's necessarily still the right choice. I tried making this point on X, where she had an opportunity to take a different role within Turning Point USA, which I think could have been profoundly more impactful and beneficial to her own interests. Because if she had not stepped into the role of being the leader of Turning Point USA, but almost embraced the role of being Charlie Kirk's widow, that elevates her. It puts her in an elevated status that remains free of taking any assailments. No one could, because no one would have few people are sufficiently boorish to attack a woman who's a recent widow, who's a single mother now, 2 little kids, And she almost would step into this role of being like, the America's widow and America's someone who we would sit and admire her strength and her class and her dignity. People would, and every time she would make occasional, the ideal thing for her, I think, would have been if she came out and she's like, she would make occasional appearances, urging people to support, thanking people for their support for her, urging people to support Turning Point USA, perhaps endorsing JD Vance, if that's what her, but not that she's front and center the show. And in that sense, whenever she's being praised, that praise can come without any sort of feeling of it being self-interest. Like everyone would just like universally forever be like, oh yeah, Erica Kirk, saint. Even if she was a relatively weak woman. And I'm not saying that she is. What I'm saying is just, the ability to hold it together. And it gives Turning Point USA a cause to rally around. She then becomes the cause to rally around Charlie Kirk and his, the Kirk family. She becomes something to rally around. She cannot play both roles. You can't play that role if you're also the leader. Because in that sense, now, as the head of Turning Point USA, it's not rally around the widow of Charlie Kirk and uphold his legacy, fulfill his legacy. It ends up becoming uphold me, which is not nearly as sympathetic. It's not nearly as sympathetic. We all understand this intuitively. Every one of us understands it. You can agree or disagree with me. Some of you may be sitting there in the chat saying, Joe's an idiot. She's the only person who was right to step into his shoes. I'm simply pointing out that if there was, I'm not saying Andrew Colvett, I'm only using his name because he's the one name I know associated with Turning Point USA. But let's assume that he had some sort of charisma or sufficient intellect and ability to play Charlie Kirk's role in a lesser type of way. I'm assuming no one there is around who's able to do it the way Charlie Kirk was able to display his ability to do it. But someone who's a light version of Charlie Kirk, who was able to step up in there as like the front person for Turning Point USA. And they would be bolstered all the time by whenever they want, whenever there's a moment that's significant for Turning Point USA, okay, now we're going to bring out for you Erica Kirk. And whenever everyone would see Erica Kirk in that moment, they become weepy and feel a love for Turning Point USA. She becomes that individual who's an icon of Turning Point USA. But when she's there front and center all the time, that doesn't work. And when she comes out there saying, whatever it is that she's saying, it's lost because I'm like, I don't know if I'm supposed to feel bad for you. Or it's like, because I feel bad for you, I need to agree with you. It feels as if your emotions are getting like weaponized here. It's because I feel bad for you now, you tell me I need to give you money, as opposed to everyone, let's help support her organization, the organization of, from Charlie and Erica Kirk. And she blush, prettily and, maybe bring out her little kids and holding their hands as they cutely walk across the stage. And everyone would sigh and cry and think warm thoughts about Charlie Kirk and open up their checkbooks and say, I want to become part of this organization. I'm simply saying if you're actually interested in raising money for Turning Point USA so you can have a significant influence, that's the way you do it. That's much more effective. And then you have that front person ends up becoming the person who's the voice of, this is what it almost can make her, she ends up getting raised up more that way also, in the sense that it's like, you'd be like, well, I spoke with Erica Kirk and this is what Erica thinks is a good idea. And everyone would be like, oh, wow, that's what Erica wants. That's what Erica wants. She knew Charlie best. She raises her own voice to be far more powerful if you don't get to hear her voice every day. Where it's like, oh, what does Erica think about this? She raises her own significance that way. What I'm saying is I think that this was a poorly thought out decision to have her be front and center, in the sense that she would be far more influential if she wasn't. She would be heralded in a way that is much more impactful on Turning Point USA and America in a way that's very positive. Instead, now she's the front person there. And anytime there's a flaw in Turning Point USA, if she's in the back there and there's a flaw in Turning Point USA, everyone's like, they wouldn't be blaming her. They'd be like, oh man, this person's letting Erica Kirk down. Now, when there's a mistake there, any mistake is Erica Kirk's fault. And I feel guilty that I'm yelling at this woman who's a widow and, you know, taking care of her 2 kids. And but it's like the emotion ends up becoming like torn in different directions. They could have made her into something that was, you know, the way Jackie Kennedy was. And I'm not saying she should mourn the way Jackie Kennedy did. I'm not saying she has to do that. And this is obviously, you're talking 60 years later. It's a whole different age, what America is like. It's a whole different nature of society. It's a whole different culture. That's not the same thing at all. But you can draw from that how to actually help strengthen. You know, Jackie Kennedy wasn't dealing with having a thriving, significantly important organization attached to her that was being held up by her husband, who was just murdered. So Erica had a lot of different challenges that Jackie Kennedy never had. I'm not saying she should be Jackie Kennedy. I'm not saying what I'm saying is if she played the role the way Jackie Kennedy did, that would have helped Turning Point USA, in my opinion, a lot more than her saying, I'm now the leader of Turning Point USA. I think it was a big mistake. And it was a correctable mistake. It's correctable in that she could be like, you know what, this is really difficult and I need to invest time in my family. And turning the reins over to someone. And I think that would actually probably be for the best of Turning Point USA. And then she becomes the matriarch. The 26-year-old matriarch, or whatever age she is. And whatever she says ends up becoming like what Charlie would have said. But I'm curious about your thoughts on it. That's my thoughts on it. Drop a comment down below. If you think that I'm wrong about this, that Erica is the only choice here. There's no one else who could have done this. I'm not even saying it has to be someone who is part of Turning Point USA. You know, currently part of their crack staff at top. Or bring someone in. Someone who, who already has their own cachet. A Jack Posobiec type. You bring in someone like that. Say he's not Charlie, and he'll, be very humbly saying, I'm not Charlie Kirk, but I'm going to try and do this as best I can. And I think that that's a role which, could be richly rewarded and rewarding for whoever does it. You say, hey, look, this is the person who's going to step in here and he's going to, try and hold similar type of rallies and try and run things here and be on a salary. I think that would have been such a smarter way to do it. A much smarter way to do it. Many use the word feel in such abundance strike me as having the souls of castratos. This guy obviously never watched AmFest before. Charlie Institute and love pyrotechnics. Erica is the host and she dressed entirely appropriately. I'm not saying that she dressed inappropriately. I'm saying that there was a way to do this. I still think there was a way to do this better. I'm not done people feel about a widow mourning. I pray to God Timmy never loses someone, then has to immediately soldier on to save that person's legacy and life's work. I'm not, and the reason I brought him, I brought that clip up is because I do think that there is on some level, even if you are fully supportive of it, I think that what he's saying does resonate with people on a purely emotional basis. People who are new to Turning Point USA, people who are not embedded with Turning Point USA, how are they going to see this woman in this moment? That's what you really sort of need to if you want to keep the organization going strongly, more powerful. That's what you sort of have to see. You're trying to reach out to new people. So what are these new people? What are they absorbing when they see this moment? Is that something that they would think is the right moment here? The right vibe. And look, she can do whatever the heck she wants. She can come out there and do cartwheels onto the stage. And that can be her way of expressing her mourning. The question is this something that's actually helping strengthen the organization or potentially alienating? And to tell people, well, just accept it. That's her way of doing it. That's fine, but that's ignoring the reality as to the impact that it has on people who are seeing her for the first time, or one of the first times, and this is their way of absorbing her, and how they're gonna feel about her, which is reflected in how they're gonna feel about their organization. You have to deal with the reality. The same way I'll tell a trans person, you have to deal with the reality of your genetics. So you also have to deal with the reality of how people are going to interpret what you're doing. It just proved me wrong debate scene that had at every campus. It proved me wrong debate scene that he had at every campus debate. Yeah. But people, there's a reason that people be like, I don't know if that's so right to have here and now. Maybe it was a year to take that off. Even if they have it every year. Maybe it was a year to be like, maybe not this year. I don't know. That's what happens when you let in Jesus freaks, Joe. I don't know. Even Yoko wasn't quite as shameless as Erica. Yoko was in a completely different position. I know, like, you hate everything associated with conservative politics. I understand that. I don't think that Yoko is a fair point at all. John Lennon wasn't part of an ongoing organization that has to be kept strong on a day-by-day basis. That's a whole different level of challenges that Erica is dealing with, that neither Yoko nor John Lennon, or neither Yoko nor Jackie had to deal with. That's a whole different level of challenges that we're facing her. I'm simply saying that those challenges probably would have been more easily met if, in fact, she had played the role of widow instead of leader of Turning Point USA. Hands One Pack says, Canyon car was rebuilt and used by Johnson, Nixon, Ford, and Carter before being donated to the Ford Museum. Oh, I didn't know that. Uzalian says, this isn't crazy at all, Joe. She has a job to do, and the head of TPUSA, this is her job. I know many who have husbands who have died. They go through fits of normality and then just start crying. I'm not saying that she's doing anything weird. I want to be clear. I'm not saying she's doing anything weird. I'm talking to you about how people will naturally take it. Tell me what the downside is of taking the approach that I suggested. If you think I'm wrong, what is the downside? Do you think that she's uniquely capable of doing this in a way that, let's say, is better than a Jack Posobiec could do it? And I'm not saying that Jack would have been interested in doing it, but there's probably 4 or 5. You could probably make a list of 4 or 5 people if you sat down and thought about it, in varying degrees, who could have stepped in a serious leadership role to basically try and fill the professional shoes of Charlie Kirk. There probably are 4 or 5 out there. So, or maybe hire a couple of them that fill in his capacity here, for that A would fill in one capacity of Charlie Kirk and B would fill in a different capacity. Just saying. Pinochet says, I do recall she went off the plantation during COVID. Biden administration started bad-mouthing her because she was complaining about inflation, specifically for her majority middle-class family. Not new. You know what I don't hear anymore? Were there co-conspirators with foreknowledge? Just drama now. That is good. Hans One Pack says, I think it's worse to use her as weeping widow. Why? Not weeping widow. She shouldn't be weeping. I'm saying is she should turn into like the widow who's a mother of Charlie Kirk's children. And that's her job. She doesn't come out crying all the time. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think others may have taken what I said and interpreted the way that you did, Hans. I'm not saying she should come out on stage crying all the time. No, not at all. She should be like happy and smiling and look strong all the time. But that she's investing 100% of her time in taking care of her children. And through those actions, she would end up becoming like legendary and universe, and retain a pristine polish to her that would be universal. Do you know what an asset that is for an organization, to be rallying around an individual in that capacity, whose tragedy the entire country, entire world felt at once. So her tragedy, that pristine individual, and we're an organization which is rallying around to support her and further the legacy that she and her husband sacrificed so much for. That's powerful. Doesn't she have to be crying? No, she shouldn't be crying. But I'm just saying, if she's small rather than large, if her role is small, and every once in a while, people like we would be rooting for the moment they can see her smiling, like a real good faith smile when something good happens. She becomes something that we all are rooting for, as opposed to continually fighting like that strangers are not rooting for. She's someone that the world is rooting for if she stays in that role. And through rooting for her, people will be supporting TPUSA. She would have that forever. Excuses for Eck and Pozo equals wrong. Erica Kirk and Pozo equals wrong. Active in local 2020 Trump campaign. TPUSA local rep was bad. Didn't want to believe it, but do now. Erica Kirk all along? Right, so you're saying they shouldn't be getting excuses. This is what I'm saying. Whatever flaws and mistakes and problems that happen in Turning Point USA, now every one of those ends up becoming like basically a reason to be like, no, I don't like Erica. No, I don't like Erica, as opposed to keeping her in that pristine image. And she still can go to that right now. She still can go to that right now. In fact, now would actually, in a way, be an ideal time for her to do it. Because it's like, okay, after AmFest, I'm so exhausted and so tired, and it was so draining and so difficult on my children. And it was, and they need me more than ever now. And I need to turn the reins over to someone. And just sort of go dark for like 4 months, where no one knows what's going on with her or family and stuff like that. Every once in a while, I spoke to Erica. Someone would be like, I spoke to Erica, she says, thank God the kids are going great. Wants to wish everyone a happy Easter, like that. Like that. Maybe some message she writes out, or a 60-second video of her wishing everyone a happy Easter and thanking them for their amazing support and helping her get through the, this difficult time. It's such a smarter way to go. Keep her pristine so that she stays their treasure, as opposed to being the one who's literally taking the attacks for everything wrong. That Turning Point, an organization invariably will make mistakes and screw up different things, like putting up a tacky display somewhere or bringing someone on stage that's controversial. All these mistakes get now thrown out on her lap and becomes an excuse to basically knock the pristine level off of her. It's bad. It's not a good thing. But I really would love to know your feel on it. Anyway, I think it's time for me to start landing my plane. I thank you all for joining me. God willing, tomorrow evening, I'll be back here, probably 6:45. I'm liking this 6:45 time. Probably 6:45, and I've been very good about sticking to it. Make sure you're here then. Till then, make sure. What else we got? Yeah, oh yeah. Lab meat, never meant for you, is meant for they, them. And do not eat the bugs. Don't do it. Don't do it. Have a good night. Godspeed.